Hi, my name's Phil. I like talking about politics, and in this video I'd like to discuss how Brexit changed from a very absolutist vision of sovereignty, where no foreigner has anything to say about how we do things in the UK, to making it mainstream to want a foreign power to literally invade us and impose not only a government of its own choosing, but a system of government, and everyone seems to think this is completely normal behaviour. But first, for daily political commentary, please hit the subscribe button so you don't miss out. So I remember the 2016 Brexit referendum campaign quite well. And for the elements that I don't remember with absolute clarity, I mean, it is 8 years ago now, the evidence is still there on the internet. There were a number of lines we got promoting Brexit. It would improve the NHS. The NHS got worse. The cost of food and clothes would fall overnight. Well, it stoked inflation above that of other similar economies. It would reduce immigration, but immigration powered up like Popeye with a can of spinach. When you point out that Brexit didn't just not deliver on its promises, but it actually delivered the reverse, the replies I get are that, all those things were just supposed to be bonuses that we may or may not have got. They weren't really the main reason for leaving. The real prize was sovereignty. But there are a few things to say about that. I mean, the first of which is it's a lie. All of those things I mentioned were promised as inevitable and desirable consequences of Brexit. Second, we could also say that a lot of people were not voting for something as intangible as sovereignty. They were voting for a cheaper cost of living or better pay, better income, better access to the NHS. They were actually voting for those things. But third, if you follow up and ask for a practical example of this sovereignty, give me a practical example, give me an example of something that shows me what this sovereignty is you're talking about, they come up blank. Never mind give me a tangible benefit of Brexit. I'm bored of asking that and getting no response. Now I'm asking, give me a tangible example of sovereignty. Because if they try to say, oh, the EU don't decide our laws anymore, it's like, well, yeah, they do. The Trading Cooperation Agreement, which Boris Johnson and David Frost delivered, means we are tied to a whole raft of EU laws and regulations still. Not that it would help if the trade agreement were much different. All businesses anywhere around the world, if they want to export, they have to follow the rules of their export market. And if different export markets have different standards, they will meet the highest standard of the market they want to export to. And as the EU single market is basically the gold standard in the world, it means no matter what sort of Brexit we had, if British businesses want to sell into Europe, and a great many of them do, they will follow EU standards no matter where they sell. And if they need to import things from the EU, well, they're obviously going to be adopting EU standards there as well because it's produced in the EU. And even if the Brexiteers, even they had to say, yes, of course we need to export more, because that was one of the arguments. Oh, okay, we might not sell as much to Europe, but we'll sell more around the world. So they understood the need for us to export more because they were hand-wringing over our balance of trade before we left the EU. Negative balance of trade. Well, that doesn't get any better if you can't export more. As it happens, our balance of trade is actually slightly worse now than it was in 2016. But we'll not split hairs, it's about the same. It hasn't got better. But what's really interesting is the breakdown. So our service exports, they were rising steadily until we left the single market. Our balance in trade in services is now exactly where it was at the point at which we left the single market at the start of 2021. It was an upward trend. It has now levelled off. It's no longer going up. But that's the good news. And because Brexit affected mostly trading goods, the blue line is the goods trade balance. And although that was also on a downward trade even before Brexit, it's really gone down since. So if any Brexiteers try to tell you that our exports are doing fine, and these, just to be clear, these are total exports around the world, not just to Europe. So if any Brexiteers try and tell you our exports are doing just fine, you can ask, so why is our overall balance of trade no better? And why is our balance of trade in goods, why has it never been worse? But anyway, despite the fact that it is demonstrably untrue to say that Brexit delivered sovereignty, because we are still following EU rules, only we no longer get to decide what those EU rules are. The point is that those still defending Brexit will insist it is the case. They insist that we no longer have to do what unelected foreign bureaucrats tell us to do, and that no foreign governments get to tell our government what to do. Only a lot of these same people are now enthusiastically pushing the line. You know, that it's a great idea that Elon Musk, who is the ultimate unelected foreign bureaucrat, is telling us exactly what to do. He's telling us who should or should not be in charge of different British political parties. He's telling us who should and should not be in our government. He's telling us what our government should and should not do. He's even telling us who should and should not be in prison. And the hard Brexiteers are loving this. They think it's fantastic. And this idea that it would be a welcome move if we didn't just voluntarily agree to do what a foreign unelected bureaucrat told us to do, which seems like a big enough departure from the Brexit ideology to me. But they think if we were invaded by a foreign power and had our system of government changed against our will, they think that's a brilliant idea. And this isn't woke Marxists supporting this idea. No, it actually first came from Darren Grimes on GB News, which means, by the way, that everyone who has promoted the idea of the USA invading the UK and forcing a government of Trump's choice onto us, whether it be Elon Musk, Nigel Farage, Jeremy Clarkson more recently, all of these people are taking their lead from Darren Grimes. That's sinking. Naturally, this is not something they would have said if Kamala Harris had won the election. They'd have been calling for her to be banned from the country, not given a state visit. In fact, the irony is this. So, let us say these people want the US to invade Britain, right? Take us over, okay? So let's say the United States did invade Britain. Well, we wouldn't be able to hold up for that much longer, so, you know, but we would be able to resist a little bit, right? By the time they'd gotten us under control and were ready to impose their choice of governor to rule over us, be about time for the Democrats to be back in power, and Darren Grimes would be crying his bulbous little eyes out, wouldn't he? But I still think it is worth pointing out that in such a short span of time, we've gone from these people saying foreigners should have nothing to do with our decisions, shouldn't even get a say, to foreigners should actually tear down our parliament and government and impose a governor of their choosing to rule over us. That we should either become the 51st state of America at best, or a vassal colony at worst. And this is all fine, is it? This all makes sense, does it? The people reading or watching the mainstream media, they're listening to people saying this, whether they agree with it or not. They're listening and reading people saying this. And it makes sense to them, does it, that people would say that? People should be asking that more. If we shouldn't accept foreigners deciding things, why are we promoting the idea of foreigners actually telling us what to do without any democratic mandate? Buying political parties, even invading us. In fact, if you look carefully at which foreigners apparently can and can't do anything with us, should be quite revealing. For example, like, you know, we can't look for a better trading relationship with our European neighbours. Although that's disgraceful, that's a betrayal. To even talk to someone from the EU is an absolute betrayal, much less be in a trading bloc with them. Yet, they didn't make a fuss that the first thing the Brexit government did was sign us up to a trade bloc with Asian and South American countries around the Pacific. You know, we mustn't work with our European neighbours on energy security or defence. But if America wants to invade us, that's cool. You know, we needed to reduce the amount of people from Europe living and working in Britain. But that meant way more people coming from Africa and Asia, and that's fine too. Now, obviously, amongst the Brexit community, opinion is divided on that last one. But, you know, and then, well, we should leave the ECHR in order to decide our own immigration and asylum rules. And yet, if you look at the rules these people have a beef with, they're basically UN rules and will continue to apply even if we left the ECHR. So are they saying we should leave the UN as well? Well, no, they wouldn't argue for that because we'd be giving up our seat on the Security Council. You know, when you take a step back and you look at the attitudes of the Brexit community to foreign interference, it essentially boils down to an insistence that we should not cooperate with our European neighbours on any issue, but we can absolutely bend over for countries outside Europe. And who does this policy primarily benefit? The Russian government. Putin's military operation may look like something the Three Stooges put together, but the way he's controlled the British public is really quite remarkable. He's got us thinking that the best way to take charge of our future is to reverse the British Empire and have former colonies tell us exactly what to do. And the general public are being fed this diet and think it's all perfectly normal. It can go on the front pages of newspapers now. It's incredible, really. But there we are. Those are my thoughts. Let me know yours in the comments below. If you've enjoyed the video, please click the like button and subscribe for further content. If you'd like to support the channel further, you can click the join button for memberships. Thanks for watching, and until next time, I'll see you later.